Hello, everybody. All right. Well, welcome to the Mikestand, everybody. Today, of course, um, is um, Monday, September 22nd, 2025. Hopefully, everybody's having a good week thus far. Um, I have a bit of news on the show side of things here. So it's possible that the week of October 6th, I may end up having to preempt the show due to the fact that I got a jury. So I got a jury summon. And I got to go over that and see what's going on with that. But I may have to preempt the show the week of October 6th. The Sunday show will still be doing. The Sunday shows on either side of it. The 5th and 12th will still be doing. But I may have to preempt the shows during the week due to the fact I'll be, again, I just got the jury summons a few minutes ago, so I don't know. I think I still need to register and see what all happens with that. But just giving you guys a heads up on that, and I'll keep you guys informed on that as time goes by. Also, a friendly reminder, as always, if you guys haven't already, if um, you guys can go ahead and like and share the stream, so we can get some more friendly people to engage. It'd be appreciated. Also, if anything here grabs your attention tonight, feel free to comment and or ask questions. I'll try to answer the questions to the best of my ability. Anyways, was watching some cartoons earlier today, including, of course, Tortoise Beats Hare, which is, of course, a Merry Melodies cartoon on Bugs Bunny and Cecil Turtle, where where um, where Bugs, of course, one of the few times you see him losing. Um, saw one of the more controversial cartoons from the era from Walter Lansford, Scrub Me Mama with a Boogie Beat. That was actually kind of a nice cartoon. But I know there was a lot of backlash from it because of the stereotypes that it was portraying, particularly of African Americans. So, anyways, all right. So we're up to 3 minutes. Yeah, up to 3 minutes now. So I guess I'll talk about what's on tap tonight. So tonight, got one article from Bounding in the Comments we're going to go over. Um, so as you all know, Gretchen Felker-Martin, who was the writer of the most recent Red Hood series that just got started, abruptly had the title canceled after she made some not so nice comments about Charlie Kirk's death, um, in which DC had said they'd offer refunds and all that. Now we're gonna get their reaction to that particular happening. We'll of course also have the wrestling wrap up. Look back over this past weekend's all out happened. Let's see, we had All Out, we had WrestlePalooza. We'll be taking a look back at those shows. We'll be looking ahead to tonight's Raw. So with that, with all that being said, why don't we go ahead and get started then? All right, so here we go. Red Hood writer criticizes DC's firing standards. Quote, you can still get Neil Gaiman's work through them, unquote. Article by Spencer McCooley. published September 18, 2020. Now, it looks like we're going to probably be inbounding the comics for the next few days here because there were a number of articles I saw here that looked like they were pretty good to go over. So, but let's see what's going on here because I think Felker-Martin's arguing that they're still pushing Neil Gaiman's work, even though he's got a lot of baggage right now, but yet they decided to let them go. So let's see what's going on here. And offering further thoughts on the recent, in smaller quotes, emergency stop placed on her overall DC career, Red Hood Volume 2 writer Gretchen Felker-Martin has criticized how the publisher was exceptionally fast to not just cancel but fully recall the only published issue of her Red Hood Volume 2, but did not offer a similar response to a number of other uncouth, in smaller quotes, that's smaller quote, creators. As previously reported, Felker-Martin found themselves in hot water on September 10th after meeting the initial news of Kirk's killing with mockery. Quote, thoughts and prayers you, and I'm going to paraphrase this or euphemize it a little bit, National Socialist female dog, unquote. She wrote to her personal temporarily suspended Blue Sky account, quote, hope the bullet's okay after touching Charlie Kirk, unquote. A few hours later, local comic book stores across the United States, as it was the only country in which the book had been officially published, received a message from DC informing them that not only was Jason Todd's latest solo series, which had just hit shelves that day, no longer moving forward, but they would also I think they forgot to put in the word be offering full refunds via credit for both their remaining copies and those which they had already sold. Pressed by multiple news outlets, including Popverse and The Hollywood Reporter, for details on the move, a spokesperson for the publisher simply stated, quote, at DC Comics, we place the highest value on our creators and community and affirm the right to peaceful individual expression of personal viewpoints. Post or public comments that can be viewed as promoting hostility or violence are inconsistent with DC's standards of conduct. So I'm guessing that they were a little uncomfortable with her calling Charlie Kirk a National Socialist female dog. Let's see. And of course, if you haven't already, you guys can help out by liking and sharing the stream. See if we can get some more friendly people to engage. That'd be appreciated. Also, if anything here grabs your attention, feel free to comment and or ask questions, and I will try to answer the questions to the best of my ability. The next day, offering her first public comment on the fallout, Felker-Martin recalled, quote, it was surreal. I got a call from a WB exec, Warner Brothers exec, at 10:30 p.m. She yelled at me. They did very much want a groveling apology. Quote, I told her I wasn't going to apologize for calling a National Socialist, that he'd spent his life trying to kill everyone I love, and then that I had no regrets, unquote. So, well, I hope she likes her time in the unemployment line. Felker-Martin would offer a lengthier uh, dissertation regarding her feelings towards Kirk on September 12th via a public post published on her Patreon account. Kirk was funded by the company's richest and most powerful, feted by President Donald Trump as the whip that kept the youth vote in line and worked them into a frenzy on Trump's behalf. This gave him power. This made his words cut flesh and snap bone. There is no separation between Kirk's rhetorical violence, and the violence carried out on his behalf, both by government apparatuses and by disturbed, quote unquote, smaller quotes, lone actors, whose sickness he gleefully stoked in hopes that it would burst into showers of blood. You know, it's kind of funny because this is classic roles for radicals, right? The stuff that your side do, you look in the mirror, you look at the most evil things that reflect back on you, and then you accuse the other side of doing it. Okay? So, she's attributing to Charlie Kirk what her side is actually doing. And we've seen this time and again. So, anyways, I do need to go off camera here for a quick moment, so I'm going to go ahead and go off camera here for a moment. I'll be right back as soon as I get the music on here. I'll be right back. Yeah, I know a lot of people on the left keep saying, both sides do violent acts. To a certain point, that may be true, but more recent violence in the last few years here has been more disproportionately coming from the left. I know that people, I know one of the more recent, acts against somebody on the left, that Minnesota state representative, they try to point to that, but that wasn't even somebody on the right who did that. If anything, that was somebody who was more in line with, he was actually somebody who actually was on, Governor Walz's staff. So, and I know some people will probably will recall, Gabby Giffords shooting a few years ago. But then, but as we said here, it's been more disproportionately, on the left doing the violence, because we know of course, Steve Scalise getting shot at a few years ago at the softball game. President Trump was within the past couple of years here, when there was attempts on his life like 2 or 3 times. Charlie Kirk being the actual latest casualty. So, quote, his hopes are now splattered across the backdrop of a gaudy little pavilion under banners reading "Prove me wrong." But in his own sick language, Kirk was proven right. He seized power and used it. No, he didn't. He didn't have any power. He did not have any power, lady. And effected great change in the world around him through the forces of his desire for violence. Again, it's been well documented that that was not the case. He died as he lived, twisting statistics to lie about minorities in hopes that others would murder them on his behalf, which is all that is untrue. Quote, 2 days later, I made a glib joke about Kirk's death. It was irresistible to me. I spent years smelling traces of poison fumes he left in his wake, seeing his sneering face, his mouth full of teeth, like baby corns and gums, like congealed aspic. I stand by the sentiment of what I said. Kirk was evil. He can no longer hurt us, even if his cruelty will linger like a bad smell for decades to come. What I regret is that I didn't take the cruelty more seriously in a moment when people were ready to discuss it, to unpack how violence is done and how and at whose behest. Yeah, this is another person that needs to be locked up in an asylum, put away from society, to keep society safe from people like this. Quote, I have tried to make my own analysis of it here to account for class, for race, for sexuality, and political theory. I have not touched upon religion, but the perversion of Christianity by lovers of human suffering. Maybe you should read the Bible, lady, because there's plenty of things that basically tell you that LGBTQ lifestyle is a sin and therefore is evil, and to willfully sin, is your biggest problem. And brutalization has reached a fever pitch so deranged and terrifying that its influence on men like Kirk and his influence on it in turn should be self-evident to all, unquote. I know I read a lot of this before in the previous articles, but I know a lot of this is rehashing right now, but we're just going through the article and just trying to see, see how all this is going down. From there, Felker-Martin's Blue Sky suspension would lift on September 16th, which was last Tuesday, whereupon she would offer her later thoughts on the Red Hood Charlie Kirk situation. One thing, okay, and I guess I meant to put quotes here, but one thing I'll say about DC not only canceling Red Hood, but recalling the first issue and refunding stores for buying it, is that you can still get Neil Gaiman's work through them. They still work with Otto Schmidt. Eddie Bergenza worked there for years after the formation of a policy that no woman were to be around him at any time for any reason due to his habitual sexual harassment and assaults. Quote, Frank Miller released one of the most savagely Islamophobic comics of all time, Holy Terror, and still works with DC. There are P-words, war criminals, confessed sexual predators on staff. Again, not all of that is entirely true. It's just her First, even in Neil Gaiman's situation, he hasn't been convicted of anything at this point. It's only alleged. He's only been accused. I don't think he's been convicted of anything yet. Quote, you can still buy all their work. Being a rude, abrasive loudmouth while trans is the only unforgivable sin to these people, unquote. Well, when your rhetoric has a chance of hurting the product, then yeah, if it's gonna cause people to not buy your product, they have every right to basically show you the door. And then the writer here, I think Spencer. For those unaware of the specific cases involving the creators named by Felker-Martin, so and of course some of which we do know about Neil Gaiman, because we've been talking about that pretty much for the last few months here. Gaiman was recently accused of grooming and sexual assault by a number of women and is currently facing a related lawsuit from one of them. DC still publishes his Batman and the Sandman work. So, and again, key words in there: accused, not convicted. Accusation does not equal conviction. Schmidt drew a graphic propaganda comics on behalf of Russian dictator Vladimir Putin. Now, again, is whether or not you want to think Putin's a dictator or not, that's more subjective. That's not objective. But DC continues to commission him for cover work. His most recent gracing in front of this month's Batgirl, Volume 6, Number 9. Well, again, in Schmidt's case there, I didn't even know about that, and most people probably don't, whether or not he did propaganda for Russian premier, whether you even want to call it propaganda or not. Again, highly subjective take from Bakuli here. Not everybody would agree that what Schmidt did for Putin. They may not necessarily agree that it's propaganda or that Putin's a dictator. So bear that in mind. Berganza was fired from DC in 2017 following numerous accusations of inter-office sexual harassment, prior to which the aforementioned, in smaller quotes, no woman around rule was confirmed by Sensational Comics Volume 2 writer Alex DeCampi. His run as an editor on a number of Superman-related titles, including Action Comics Volume 1, Adventures of Superman Volume 1, and World's Finest Volume 1, are still widely available in various trade collections. His run as an... Yeah, I mean, he edited the books. He didn't write the books, so he just edited them. So Miller, as noted by Felker-Martin, wrote and drew Holy Terror, a post 9/11 anti-terrorism terrorism that presents both the war on terror and the Islamic faith as cartoonishly evil. From The Dark Knight Returns to its third sequel, 2019's The Dark Knight Returns, The Golden Child, Miller's collected works remains a mainstay of comic book retail. Well, because it's a popular title. It's a popular title. People still want to read it. Regardless of what he wrote later, you're going to want to still read it. While Felker-Martin did not provide any specifics as to the supposed P words and confessed SPers on staff. It's currently presumed that the quote-unquote war criminals include not just Schmidt, labeled as such for his Putin propaganda piece, but also current DC Golden Boy Tom King himself and an ex-CIA agent who helped plan and facilitate America's 2003 invasion of Iraq. Now, again, a lot of this is more subjective and left to interpret. In Felker-Martin's case, these are accurate descriptions, but there are probably people who would debate them on that, and not. And maybe there's some people who would say that that's not the case. So more subjective here. At present, neither DC nor Warner Brothers have offered a public comment on Felker-Martin's above post. Yeah, and if she's not careful, if some of what she says turns out to be false or defamation, they may go after her for that. So she'll not only have to suffer from being fired, but she may end up suffering a defamation lawsuit too. Not careful. Hey, Metal. Again, if anything here grabs your attention, feel free to comment and or ask questions. I don't know if you have anything you want to add to the whole Felker-Martin situation or not. Don't know how much of the Felker-Martin or Gaiman or any of the other stuff you know about or follow. But if you want to, let's see, 27 minutes. I think I might look to see if, well, of course, waiting see if Metal has a response to what I just read there or not. I think I will take a quick peek to see if there's another article we can do that would be kind of a quickie. I knew this one would take a good chunk of time, but it didn't take quite as long as I thought it was going to. I think we could probably. It's an animated. Yes, it is an animated series. All right. Well, with no other comment, yeah, I'm gonna move on to. I'm gonna do one more article, where we move on to the wrestling wrap up. There's one I just found here. And apparently my signal's acting up a little bit here. Alright, so Blade now making an MCU debut in Marvel Zombies thanks to solo film Cluster Bleep. So, article by Spencer McCulley, published September 19th, 2025. So let's get into this. So never underestimate Marvel Studios' potential to further fumble their live-action plans for Blade, as thanks to their continued inability to raise his solo film from the grave, The Dampier's first proper MCU appearance will not only happen as part of the Marvel Zombies ensemble cast, but also without the participation of its slated actor Mahershala Ali. Picking up in the aftermath of the What If Zombies episode of the eponymous animated anthology, Marvel Zombies will see a handful of still living Avengers striking out across Earth's undead wastelands in the hopes of using the Mind Stone, parentheses, as discovered to be the cure in the original What If episode, to mass disinfect the planet. I guess Marvel Zombies is one of those zombie plague type storylines. It's been getting popular in recent years. And while the series, Final Avengers roster will feature a number of well-established MCU heroes such as Ant-Man, Spider-Man, and White Widow, they'll also be joined on the front lines by Blade, who in this timeline serves as the latest of the god Khonshu's many Moon Knights. And again, if you guys haven't already, you guys can help out by liking and sharing the stream, see if we can get some more friendly people to engage. That'd be appreciated. Also, if anything here grabs your attention, feel free to comment and or ask questions. I'll try to answer the questions to the best of my ability. So, as we continue on here, following the release of the series trailer, fans were taken aback by the fact that rather than his solo film, Marvel Zombies would play host to the first appearance of the Daywalker since his off-screen voice cameo in Eternals. Post-credit scene, in parentheses, which itself is no longer relevant thanks to Marvel Studios scrapping its teased Black Knight storyline plotline, on parentheses. But far from being the only ones, Marvel Studios head of streaming television animation, Brad Winderbaum, recently admitted to IGN that this switch-up also came as a surprise to the series production team, who had fully expected for it to release well after Blade made its theatrical debut. Quote, we never in a million years thought that the zombie show would precede a live-action Blade. We developed this show believing there would be a Blade movie out well before Zombies. And quote, so the fact this is the first Blade in the MCU on screen is really just kind of a surprising privilege to us. And one of the reasons why we made him the Fist of Khonshu was that they were discovering Blade in the live action side. And we knew we could end up having to pivot if we tried to hew close to what they were creating in live action. Quote, so by making him a version of Moon Knight, we were able to kind of create something original, have a little bit more freedom with the character, unquote. And in further separating this alternate universe, Blade from his mainstream counterpart, as well as adding sun-soaked insult to injury. The alternative universe, Blade won't even be voiced by the aforementioned Ali. All right. Who has been waiting in the wings to pick up a katana ever since he was first cast in 2019. Instead, the Fist of Khonshu will be portrayed by voice actor Todd Williams, who many may know as Invincible's Titan, a role he notably took over from Ali. Oh boy, that can be kind of a stinger. So you basically replace one actor with another guy he replaced before as well. By now, the delays to the MCU's attempted Blade film have become the stuff of legends, with its thus far 6-year-long residence in production hell, seeing it go through 3 writers, 3 total base concepts, a period piece, a backdoor pilot for the hero's daughter Danielle, and currently just an out-and-out Blade adventure. 5 release date delays, 6 total script revisions, its unused wardrobe being handed off to Coogler's Sinners, and untold hours of frustration for star Mahershala Ali. Providing an update in July, Marvel Studios boss Kevin Feige both confirmed that Mahershala is still attached, unquote, and blamed the film's failure to rise from the dead on the franchise's, quote, over-expansion, unquote, post-Endgame. So basically saying they have too much material to try to adapt, I think is what he's saying there. However, according to a subsequent report from Variety, Tatiana Siegel, quote, amid an industry-wide pullback on superheroes, the Marvel Brain Trust, feeling no sense of urgency on the long gestating Blade reboot, or even a new Deadpool outing, sources say. However, ideas are percolating on a Ryan Coogler-helmed Black Panther 3, creating excitement internally, unquote. So there we go with that. I think that's all we got for that stuff tonight. Yeah, for the main art. Yeah, 36 minutes. So yeah, 38, maybe 39 minutes there. So I believe we will go ahead. Now, I need to go off camera here for a quick moment. I'll be right back. All right. So with all that being said, now of course we're going to go ahead and we're going to move on to the wrestling wrap up. We're going to go right into the two big, big events: WWE's PLE WrestlePalooza, and then AEW's All Out, and then we'll of course look ahead to today's or to tonight's Monday Night Raw here. So, anyways, let me just go grab that. Actually, I think I'll hit the AEW one first, just simply because a bit more of a better. So in Toronto this past Saturday from the Scotiabank Arena, with Bryan Danielson, Excalibur, Taz, Tony Schiavone, and Don Callis on commentary. All Elite Wrestling had its All Out pay-per-view. Opening match saw Christian Cage and Adam Copeland defeat FTR of Dax Harwood and Cash Wheeler with Stokely in their corner. Making his return after a long absence because of injury, Eddie Kingston came back and got a win in his first time back, answering the challenge of Big Bill. In the tables and tax match, Mark Briscoe defeated MJF in 1921. In the six-man tag match on the evening, the group now calling themselves the Demand of Ricochet and the Gates of Agony of Bishop Khan and Leona defeated the Hurt Syndicate of MVP and Bobby Lashley and Shelton Benjamin. Mercedes Moné retained the TBS title over Riho, the first ever AEW Women's World Champion. In a three-way match for the AEW Unified title, Kazuchika Okada retained over Konosuke Takeshita and Mascara Dorada. Jon Moxley defeated Darby Allin in a coffin match. The lone title change that happened on the night. Chris Statlander outlasted three other women, outlasted champion Toni Storm, former AEW Women's World Champion Jamie Hayter, and Tekla to become the new AEW Women's World title, also becoming the first woman in AEW history to have held both the TBS and AEW Women's World titles. So there's that piece of scenery. Brodito of Ring of Honor World Champion and Brody King retained the AEW World Tag Team title in a four-way ladder match over Jet Speed of Speedball Mike Bailey and the Jet Kevin Knight, the Don Callis family members Josh Alexander and H. Cesaro, the Young Bucks of Matt and Nick Jackson. And in the main event, at 30 minutes and 10 seconds, Hangman Adam Page retained the AEW World title over TNT champion Kyle Fletcher. So now with that being done and said, now let's go ahead and talk a little bit about what happened at WrestlePalooza, also happening on Saturday. WWE's WrestlePalooza, as shown on ESPN, with Michael Cole, Wade Barrett, and Pat McAfee on commentary. The opening match saw Brock Lesnar totally decimate John Cena in their singles match in 8 minutes 48 seconds, with LA Knight as special guest referee. The Vision's Braun's son, Braun Breaker and Bronson Reed, with Paul Heyman in their corner, defeated the Usos of Jay and Jimmy Uso. Jay Uso was injured in this match and took a very nasty shot to the head. He's currently under concussion protocols right now, so we may not see him for at least a couple weeks here. In a match in the match to crown the new women's world champion, as it was vacated by Naomi when she became pregnant. Stephanie Vaquer defeated Io Sky in what turned out to be a clean match. There was some speculation of possibly having Asuka interfere in this match, cost Io Sky the match, which would lead into a feud between those two. But in this case, it did not happen that way. A lot of people were. Now, this is considered the best match of the night, by the way. In just under 20 minutes, Stephanie Vaquer defeated Io Sky to become the new WWE Women's World title. In the mixed tag match, CM Punk and AJ Lee defeated Seth Rollins and Becky Lynch. In the main event, saw Cody Rhodes retain the undisputed WWE title over Drew McIntyre. Now, a lot of people were calling out Triple H for false advertising here because there was a lot more expected. I guess a lot more people were expecting more to happen. I guess one of the other key things that happened at WrestlePalooza was Undertaker came out to help announce that Stephanie McMahon would become the first inductee into the 2026 class for the WWE Hall of Fame. So the first inductee from the 2026 class into the WWE Hall of Fame. So now, as we look ahead to tonight's Raw, Monday Night Raw, and I grab that. With Joe Tessitore and Wade Barrett on commentary from the Ford Center, Evansville, Indiana, WWE had its Monday Night Raw. Now, on tonight's episode, the no disqualification six-man tag match, Penta teams with former World Tag Team Champions Eric and Ivar, the War Raiders, take on Grayson Waller and the New Day, another pair of former World Tag Team Champions, Kofi Kingston and Xavier Woods. Bayley with Lyra Valkyria in her corner takes on Roxanne Perez, who will have Raquel Rodriguez in her corner. JD McDonough of the New Day, not of the New Day, but Judgment Day, with Dominic Mysterio in his corner, will be taking on Rusev. Supposedly, according to this, Jey Uso and LA Knight are supposed to be taking each other on, but I don't know if that match is going to go down because we were just talking about how Jey Uso is in concussion protocol. Now, Asuka with Kairi Sane in her corner is set to take on Rhea Ripley. I guess we'll wait and see how that all pans out, but that's all we got for the wrestling wrap-up. Let's see now. So now with all that being said, of course, with today being Monday, this is also the first day of fall, of course. But with all that being said, we're going to go ahead and take a look back at this day in Niche history. So, 1999, 1955, 2020, and 2015. All right. So first off, I'm going to head back 70 years ago today, as on this date 70 years ago today. I pull that up. On this date back in 1955, 70 years ago today, Pat O'Connor would defeat Dick Hutton in Columbus, Ohio, to win the Midwest Wrestling Association's Ohio title on this date back in 1955. So 70 years ago today, Pat O'Connor, who would also win in his career both the NWA World and AWA World Heavyweight titles, would defeat Dick Hutton for the Midwest Wrestling Association's Ohio title on this date back in 1955. So with that being said now, getting ready to move on to the next piece in Niche history here. On this next date in Niche history here, We move ahead to the year 1999. On this date in the year 1999, which of course is 26 years ago today, the first issue of Batman Beyond went on sale on this date back in 1999. Of course, this is the book that was, of course, based in part off of the, of course, W animated series. Sold for $1.99 with 32 pages. The title of the story was Grounded, as written by Hilary J. Bader. Greg Rousseau on pencils, inked by Rob Lee, Timothy Harkins in lettering, and Lee Lowridge in coloring. On this date, back in the year 1999, 26 years ago today, the first issue of Batman Beyond went on sale on this date back in 1999. All right. So with that being said, now moving on to the next piece of niche history, as we move on to the year 2015, which was just 10 years ago today. On this date, 10 years ago today. Let's see. Lurche's Monster Musume would conclude its run on Japanese television on this date back in 2015. So 10 years ago today, Lurche's Monster Musume would conclude its run on Japanese television on this date back in 2015. So 10 years ago today. And finally, as we move ahead to the year 2020, on this date in the year 2020, the date in the year 2020, Atomic Cartoons Mighty Express would premiere on Netflix on this date 5 years ago today. 5 years ago today, Atomic Cartoons Mighty Express would premiere on Netflix. Mighty Express is a Canadian animated television series created by the British producer Keith Chapman. The series is produced by Spin Master Entertainment in partnership with Netflix, with animation, while the animation is produced by Atomic Comics. It was released on September 22nd, 2020. The show was followed by a Christmas special, A Mighty Christmas, released on. So there you go. All right. So with that, I thank everybody for being here tonight. Hope everybody enjoyed the show. We'll be back here with more niche news tomorrow. Now, again, I need to reiterate this, what I announced in the beginning. It's possible that the week of October 6th, the Mikestand may be preempted. I got a jury summons today. I have to look it over and see what's all going on. I may, depending upon what's all going on with that, it may just be one day I may be off that week. It may be all 5. Of course, we'll still be doing the Sunday shows, the historical comic retrospect, so those are not affected by it. But I did get a jury summons for the week of October 6th, so maybe a possibility that the Mikestand may be getting preempted that week. So we'll just wait and see. So with that, I thank everybody for being here. I hope to see everybody back here tomorrow. Bye.